Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion, here with you on a Monday. Happy Bastille Day. You know, we just celebrated our Independence Day. France has theirs. It was quite a few years later, but both of us celebrate 10 days apart here in July. And I think celebrating independence and freedom, especially now that fascism is on the rise and authoritarianism is here, it's important. So let's celebrate today. Let's also begin, as we always begin here at Uncommon Communion, by recalling and affirming that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of God and each other. So I want to do two things today. First of all, I want to talk a little bit, just briefly, about the readings that we heard liturgically yesterday in the church that I attend, which is in the Episcopal Communion. And also, I want to share with you a really cool reflection that I read today in one of the books that I read each day. This is the Ignatian book. And I want to reflect on that and tie these two thoughts together. All right. So before that, though, I want to bring to you some news that you might not have picked up on. You might not have followed. You know, T. Rump is in the news all the time. Right now, he is coming under tremendous fire from his own supporters because of the Jeffrey Epstein case. And I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think there's really only one thing to say. We are looking at a cover-up unlike anything we have ever seen before, because Trump's acting like he's guilty. Clearly, the people who are in charge of the two main areas, the Justice Department and the FBI, have been silenced and quelched by him. And the thing that's amazing about this, y'all, is the easy solution, if Trump is not guilty, is release the files. Show what's in them, get them out. He's probably not going to, because, again, we know so much about his history. And this crisis for his presidency is, I think, only going to continue. So not much more I can say about that. And what I did want to say is, in the midst of all of this firestorm, you might have missed kind of a little bit of a side show. One, though, that strikes me closely, because you know, Trump goes to sporting events, right? He's involved with the professional wrestling. He does a lot with college football and other football. I don't really care about that, quite honestly. That is just not my interest. But when it comes to soccer, when it comes to world football, that's when I pay attention. And I don't know if you saw this over the weekend, but Trump, T-Rump, as I like to call him, attended the FIFA Club Championship World Cup that was, for the last month, being held here in the States. First of all, a little bit about FIFA, in case you are not familiar. That is the governing body of world football. That's what the F stands for in FIFA. Many have said that it is one of the most powerful organizations in the world that has absolutely zero accountability. The corruption that we have seen in recent times, and I could list this, you could look it up, with FIFA is astounding. So it is no coincidence and no surprise that the current president of FIFA, I'm going to read his name off of my side screen, it's Gianni Infantino is his name, to know that he and T. Rump are in cahoots with each other, to know that they're friends, to know that there's all kinds of money and political connection is really not a surprise. So T. Rump attended this FIFA World Cup final yesterday in New Jersey. Now, do keep in mind that his being there apparently closed Newark Airport for hours. And we all know Newark Airport, busiest in the New York City metro, all kinds of problems we've heard out of there. So that's one thing. He also was booed loudly. And you can watch the video as he is going on to the stage to be with the winning team, who won in an upset. Chelsea was the team that won. They beat the French team, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. Would have been nice, I think, for PSG to have won on the eve of Bastille Day. but they got upset. Trump goes on the stage to be with the Chelsea players, and as they are raising the trophies being booed, he stays on the stage. So rather than, apparently the expectation, and this makes sense, is he's going to walk on there, shake a few hands, and then exit and, go do what the president of the United States does. But the attention hog, I'm going to say a word here that is maybe a little bit PG-13, the attention slut that he is, right? He couldn't leave the stage. So there's this remarkable footage of the players celebrating their win. And, the idea is that each one gets to hold the trophy on their own and they get a picture and, so on and so forth. He's standing right there. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing that came out, and again, I'm not saying this is earth-shaking, world-shaking news. It is so in character of this deranged individual and the corruption that we are seeing. The trophy that they held up, these players, was not the real trophy. That was a duplicate because T-Rump saw the real trophy a few weeks ago and asked to keep it in the Oval Office. And of course, his suck-up, the president of FIFA, this Infantino guy, gave it to him. So they made a replica. Yeah, this is what we're dealing with, folks. And again, it's not earth-shaking. And again, it might have been something you missed. And it's something that speaks closely to me because when you start messing with world football, world soccer, it hits me kind of close to home. What I wanted to share with you, though, shifting gears here, is the first reading yesterday from the liturgical readings that I heard where I was. And this is the Episcopal Church and also the churches that use the common lectionary. It was from the prophet Amos. Amos is an interesting character. And yesterday in the gospel, we hear him talking about a plumb line and God saying, I will give you and the people of Israel, the nation of that time, this plumb line. Now, if you're not familiar with a plumb line, that's okay. I had to look it up just to be sure. But basically, it's a weight that is on a string, and you hang the string, and it shows you what a straight line looks like. Now, today we have lasers, and we have other things that can do that. But for, since biblical times, since Old Testament times, this is how we discovered in building and putting up, bricks and wallpaper now and so forth, how we keep things organized, how we keep things straight. So God says, to Amos, there will be this plumb line. I'm going to give you this plumb line. Then we go to the gospel, which just so helpfully was the Good Samaritan yesterday. Now, keep in mind, y'all, we're on a 3-year cycle, and this particular reading came up right now in the midst of all of this that we're seeing with deportations and, prisons and gulags in the Everglades and all of this stuff, right? So at the end of that story, Jesus says to the man who asked, after Jesus tells the parable, he says, which of those three, and again, there's 3 characters in there, right? The religious leader, there is kind of a political leader, and there is this Samaritan, this hated class of people, the Samaritans. And Jesus says, which one of these men did the right thing? Which is our example? And the man says, it was the one who showed mercy. And Jesus says, go and do likewise. So what is our plumb line? How do we know if we are following Christ? How do we know if our path is towards Christ and with Christ? It is mercy. It is mercy. It is that we do like the Samaritan did, which was help and be compassionate and care for extravagantly, not just a little bit, extravagantly, whomever we find in need in our path. Today's reading that I came across in my favorite book, I've shared this with you before, it is the Ignatian Book of Days. Today is a quote from the Spiritual Exercises. Now, if you're not familiar, the Spiritual Exercises is basically a manual for a 30-day retreat that Ignatius would have his early Jesuits go on. And it has 4 very distinct weeks. It starts with sin, and it starts with, understanding our separation from God. And that's where this one comes from. So this is directly from the spiritual exercises. These are Ignatius's own words, written more than 500 years ago. So this is a long time ago. He says, "This is a cry of wonder accompanied by surging emotion as I pass in review of all creatures. How is it that they have permitted me to live and have sustained in me life? Why have the angels, though they are the sword of God's justice, tolerated me, guarded me, and prayed for me? Why have the saints interceded for me and asked favors for me? And the heavens, sun, moon, stars, and the elements, the birds, fruits, fishes, and other animals, why have they all been at my service? How is it that the earth did not open to swallow me up?" So before the little bit of commentary on this, again, I want to highlight 2 things. One is that sense of wonder, that cry of wonder, which I would assert to you is the plumb line of a planetary pilgrim. So what keeps a planetary pilgrim on the path that we are traveling, which again could be the way of Christ, it could be the way of Buddha, it could be the way of Muhammad, the way of Islam, any number of ways, right? What is the plumb line for that first part, that planetary pilgrim? It's the cry of wonder. It's that when we go out and when we look around, we have that cry of wonder, as Ignatius says. Now, here's the other element here. He's talking about, like, why are the angels, why are the saints, why are they allowing me to just to be able to live without swallowing me up? So the commentary on this says, this cry of wonder comes in the middle of a series of reflections of sin, on sin, during the first week of the spiritual exercises. We're able to confront wrongdoing because we know that God loves us anyway. We are sinners, but we are redeemed sinners. And that's really important, y'all. There is evil rising in the world today. There is a sickness in the Trumpian MAGA universe, in their worldview and so forth. There's an idolatry. There's a cult. All of that is true. And those folks are brothers and sisters. They are sinners like all of us are. Now, what is the difference between you and me and them? Well, we recognize that we need redemption. We recognize our pridefulness. Sometimes, most of the time, none of the time, who knows? But we recognize the truth of what the plumb line is, which is the mercy. And we are seeking mercy as much as we can. Their sin, their blindness, their delusion is keeping them from that. And it's led them to not mercy, but the opposite, which is cruelty and hurting others. So how do we get out of this? There has to be a political solution, of course, right? We need to vote. We need to uphold the Constitution. We need to rally. There's a rally coming up on Thursday. It's the Good Trouble Rally in honor of John Lewis. It's coming up Thursday. Look for it near where you are, wherever you might be. And yet there's more to it. There has to be a spiritual solution, and that is only achieved through love and courage and empathy and strength in the truth, which is the truth is love. So we need to love those folks. We need to pray for them. We need to just work and hope and wait in many ways and work, all of that. So let's close, as I like to close often here, with the serenity prayer, because knowing what we can do and what we can't do is always at the heart of any type of healthy spirituality. So let us pray. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I like to end with, thy will, not ours, be done. And know that God's will is always love and mercy. Thanks for being here, y'all. Blessing and good. Be gentle. Be well. We'll see you.